You give her stability. You give her loyalty. You become the careful architect of a life that looks perfect from the outside. Bills are paid on time. The future is planned. The house is calm. Yet in the quietest moments, those moments when intimacy should dissolve distance instead of revealing it, you look into her eyes and see something unsettling. A thin layer of absence. She is present physically, but somewhere else emotionally. Her body responds, but her spirit does not arrive. This is the truth. Most modern narratives try to soften or bury beneath polite language. You are not necessarily failing as a partner. In fact, you may be doing everything society taught you to do, but society often confuses companionship with attraction. You are satisfying the needs of a roommate, not a lover. You are feeding safety while quietly starving desire. There are deep structures underneath attraction, primal mechanisms older than etiquette, older than modern psychology. Inside the architecture of female erotic desire are several needs that are not negotiable. They are not polite requests or conscious preferences. They are biological signals that determine whether a man becomes invisible or unforgettable. The first of these needs is something most men spend their lives suppressing. Controlled threat. Modern culture sells the fantasy that women want harmless men. Men who are endlessly agreeable. Men who smooth every conflict and bend around every discomfort. But biologically, pure harmlessness rarely inspires fascination. Safety without depth produces calm, not desire. Imagine the difference between a swimming pool and the ocean. The swimming pool is safe, predictable, measured down to the inch. Nothing unexpected waits beneath its surface. You could float there all afternoon without the slightest sense of risk. The ocean, however, carries another energy entirely. It is beautiful not because it is safe, but because it is powerful. Vast, uncontrollable, a place that commands respect. Women admire the ocean. They do not need a man who harms them. That is weakness disguised as dominance. But they do need to sense that beneath your calm exterior lives the capacity for force, restraint, and power, a force that you consciously choose not to unleash against them. Throughout history, this pattern has repeated itself. In ancient Rome, noble women married wealthy senators who provided stability and status. Yet many of those same women became fascinated by gladiators, men who stood much lower in the social hierarchy. It was not the wealth that attracted them, it was proximity to danger. The gladiator represented raw capability. Violence contained inside discipline. Controlled threat is exactly that. The presence of a monster that you keep on a leash. A man who apologizes for his existence erases that monster entirely. When you constantly explain yourself, soften every opinion, and surrender every boundary, you communicate something unintentionally. There is nothing beneath the surface. You become safe in the most sterile sense of the word. Controlled threat reveals itself through small signals. The refusal to justify every decision. The ability to say no calmly without hostility. The willingness to hold eye contact 1 second longer than social politeness requires. These are not acts of aggression. They are signs of solidity. When she challenges you emotionally, and she will, you must understand what she is truly testing. She is not asking whether you will become angry. She is asking whether you can remain grounded. If her emotional storms move you like wind moves sand, then you cannot be relied upon as a foundation. But if the storm crashes against you and you remain steady, she begins to recognize something deeper, strength that does not need to shout. You become the dangerous thing that keeps her safe. The second need lives in a different dimension entirely. Psychological penetration. Most men obsess over physical performance. Technique, endurance, physical compatibility. Yet physical connection without mental depth quickly becomes mechanical. True intimacy begins long before the body becomes involved. Psychological penetration is the ability to bypass the mask she shows the world and speak directly to the person hiding behind it. Every woman carries several identities: the professional self, the social self, the responsible version that navigates expectations from family, work, and society. These identities function as armor, allowing her to move through the world smoothly. But behind that armor lives something less organized and more honest: the erotic self. This part of her personality contains impulses she may never openly express: curiosity, dark humor, desire that contradicts her polite identity. Most men never encounter this part of her mind because they only interact with the surface. They ask about her day. They discuss plans. They compliment her appearance. All of that remains polite, but shallow. Psychological penetration happens when you recognize the emotion beneath her behavior and name it before she does. If she becomes distant, the average man argues with the surface behavior. He asks why she is acting differently. He attempts to fix the problem logically. The man who understands deeper dynamics looks past the behavior entirely. Instead of arguing, he observes the pattern and speaks to the underlying emotion. You're not upset about the conversation. You're upset because you felt ignored earlier. In that moment, something unusual happens inside her mind. She experiences a sensation of exposure, not humiliation, but recognition. You saw something she did not explicitly show. There is a psychological technique called cold reading, often used by performers and illusionists. But inside a relationship, the ability to intuit emotions becomes something far more meaningful. It signals attentiveness. When you articulate her emotional state before she does, she feels understood on a deeper level than conversation alone can achieve. Exposure leads to vulnerability. Vulnerability creates openness, and openness allows intimacy to deepen beyond politeness. The third need is rarely discussed openly because it contradicts many modern narratives about harmony in relationships. It is the need for volitional resistance. We are often told that love means agreement, support, alignment in every decision. Yet constant agreement removes something essential from attraction: separation. Desire requires two distinct individuals. If you agree with everything she says, approve every opinion, and surrender every preference, you stop existing as an independent presence. You become an extension of her identity. And no one desires an extension of themselves. Healthy resistance does not mean constant conflict. It means maintaining a sense of self, even in the presence of someone you care about deeply. History provides countless examples of this dynamic. Consider the story of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. The king possessed enormous power and wealth. Many women competed for his attention by offering compliance and admiration. Anne did something different. She resisted. She established boundaries that could not be easily crossed. She maintained her own will instead of dissolving into his influence. That resistance created tension, and tension created fascination. The space between two strong individuals becomes a place where desire can grow. For a modern man, this principle manifests through personal standards. Your time matters. Your opinions matter. Your lifestyle choices matter. If she attempts to reshape every aspect of your identity, your hobbies, your schedule, your values, and you surrender without hesitation, you quietly signal that your approval is more important to you than your self-respect. Attraction rarely survives that imbalance. True resistance is calm, not combative. If you dislike something, you say so honestly. If a boundary is crossed, you address it clearly, not through anger, but through certainty. Friction creates heat. Without friction, everything simply slides past each other without energy. And relationships without energy slowly transform into something far less exciting than love. They become comfortable arrangements, Comfort is pleasant, but comfort alone rarely ignites passion. The fourth need enters territory that makes many people uncomfortable to discuss openly, yet it exists quietly beneath the surface of human attraction. It is the need for erotic objectification. Modern social language teaches men that the highest form of respect is to treat a woman purely as an intellectual equal, a colleague, a partner in rational conversation. In the daylight of polite society, this idea functions well. But attraction does not live in the daylight. It lives in the darker corners of the psyche, where instinct overrides etiquette. Erotic desire often carries a strange paradox. A woman spends most of her life being evaluated. Her competence is judged at work. Her kindness is judged in social circles. Her behavior is judged by family expectations. Everywhere she goes, she must perform a role. Inside the erotic mind, however, there exists a deep longing to escape those roles entirely. In that space, she does not want to be evaluated as a responsible person, managing a long list of obligations. She wants to feel like the singular focus of someone's hunger, not admired politely, but desired intensely. This dynamic appears repeatedly across cultures and eras. Studies of sexual psychology have shown that one of the most common fantasies among women is the idea of being overpowered by desire, not violated or harmed, but desired so strongly that hesitation disappears. What this fantasy actually represents is freedom from responsibility. When a man hesitates constantly, asking permission for every touch, apologizing for every gesture, he places the burden of escalation onto her. She must decide whether the interaction continues. She must manage the emotional risk. But when a man expresses unapologetic desire, something changes. The responsibility shifts. She no longer needs to lead the moment. She can respond instead of initiating. History offers fascinating examples of this dynamic. Napoleon Bonaparte, known for military genius and strategic thinking, wrote letters to his wife Josephine that shocked many readers. They were not intellectual or diplomatic. They were raw. He described longing for her scent, her skin, the intensity of his desire. He did not treat her as a polite conversational partner within those letters. He made her the center of his hunger. Paradoxically, that kind of intensity often feels more flattering than polite admiration. It communicates that she is not merely respected, she is desired. This kind of objectification must never cross into disrespect or dehumanization. The distinction lies in intention. Erotic objectification elevates her as the singular object of fascination in that moment. You look at her not as a checklist of responsibilities or achievements, but as something magnetic. It often appears in silence more than words. The moment when you pause mid-sentence because you are distracted by her lips. The way your hand rests firmly at her waist instead of hovering uncertainly. The subtle shift in eye contact that communicates interest without apology. Politeness can sometimes feel like distance. Desire closes that distance. The fifth need moves away from desire and into emotional territory that many men misunderstand. It is the need for emotional containment. The modern world creates enormous psychological pressure. Deadlines, expectations, social comparisons, endless digital noise. Inside that environment, emotional stability becomes fragile. When she shares frustration or anxiety, most men respond the same way. They attempt to fix the problem. She complains about a difficult colleague, and he immediately proposes strategies. She expresses insecurity about her appearance, and he suggests solutions. His intention is helpful, but the response misses the deeper purpose of her communication. She is not presenting a puzzle that requires solving. She is presenting emotional chaos, and chaos does not always need solutions. Sometimes it needs containment. Imagine a small child experiencing a meltdown. If the parent begins shouting in response, the chaos multiplies. The child becomes even more distressed because the environment itself feels unstable. But if the parent remains calm, steady, and silent while holding the child, something shifts. The emotional storm gradually slows because it encounters a stable boundary. Adults experience a similar dynamic, though far more subtle. When she expresses intense emotion, she is often unconsciously asking one question: can you hold this without collapsing? If her anxiety triggers your anxiety, the situation spirals. Now both of you are reacting instead of stabilizing. But if she pours frustration into the conversation, and you remain calm, steady voice, relaxed posture, quiet confidence, her nervous system begins to regulate itself. You become the container. This is not about suppressing emotion. It is about absorbing emotional energy without letting it destabilize you. Calm presence has a strange chemical effect on human psychology. Over time, she begins associating your presence with relief from mental noise. Your steadiness becomes a refuge. This dynamic creates a powerful bond because emotional safety becomes linked to a specific person. The sixth need explains why many couples struggle to maintain desire even when affection remains strong. It is the need for contextual isolation. Male arousal tends to function like a light switch. Stress, fatigue, or distraction may reduce desire, but the mechanism itself is relatively simple. Female arousal often functions more like a combination lock. Multiple conditions must align before the emotional and physical response activates fully. If the environment contains too many interruptions, phones buzzing, unfinished chores, work emails, background noise, the mind remains trapped in analytical mode. And analytical mode is the enemy of erotic surrender. Many men attempt to ignite attraction while the environment remains chaotic. Television playing in the background, phones lighting up, conversations about daily logistics continuing minutes before intimacy. The result feels mechanical rather than immersive. Contextual isolation means creating a temporary world where the outside responsibilities disappear. Historically, societies built special spaces for this purpose: temples, gardens, hidden chambers, private retreats. These environments symbolized a break from ordinary obligations. Modern relationships require the same concept, though often in simpler forms. When you are with her, distractions vanish. Your phone disappears from the table. Conversations about work or responsibilities fade away. Decisions about plans or logistics are handled by you rather than delegated back to her. This might sound small, but it changes something fundamental. Decision-making requires cognitive effort. Planning requires attention. When she must organize every detail of the interaction, her mind stays in executive mode. Executive mode belongs to the rational brain. Erotic desire belongs to the instinctive brain. Creating contextual isolation allows the analytical mind to relax. Without that relaxation, desire struggles to emerge fully. In that moment, you are not just participating in the interaction, you are designing the environment around it. You become the architect of a temporary world where nothing else exists except the experience you share. And within that world, something deeper begins to awaken. The seventh need lies deeper than all the others. It is the place where most relationships never travel because it requires a level of psychological courage that many people avoid. This final need is shadow witnessing. Every human being carries a hidden side of themselves. The psychologist Carl Jung described it as the shadow, the collection of impulses, emotions, and desires that society teaches us to suppress. These are not always evil impulses. Often they are simply parts of ourselves that do not fit the image we are expected to present to the world. Women in particular grow up with powerful expectations. They are told to be kind, nurturing, composed, emotionally responsible. Over time, this conditioning creates a divide between the person they present publicly and the parts of themselves that feel messy, selfish, jealous, or impulsive. Those hidden parts do not disappear. They simply retreat into silence. Inside that silence grows a quiet fear. If anyone saw everything inside me, they would walk away. Shadow witnessing is the ability to stand in front of that hidden world without recoiling. It requires emotional steadiness because the shadow is not always pretty. It may contain fantasies she considers embarrassing. It may contain insecurities she considers weak. It may contain anger she has never expressed. When those things surface, the average reaction is discomfort. Many men try to correct the feeling immediately. They reassure her too quickly, change the subject, or dismiss the thought entirely. Don't say that. That's not true. You shouldn't think that way. These responses seem supportive, but they send an unintended message. They imply that the darker parts of her personality are unacceptable. Shadow witnessing does the opposite. When she reveals something uncomfortable about herself, you remain present. You do not flinch. You do not rush to fix the emotion. Instead, you acknowledge it with calm curiosity. If she shares a strange fantasy, you listen without judgment. If she reveals an insecurity, you meet it with patience instead of embarrassment. If she cries in a moment that feels chaotic or irrational, you do not withdraw your attention. In those moments, she experiences something rare, someone seeing her completely without demanding that she hide pieces of herself. Historically, there was a ritual designed for exactly this purpose, the confessional. People would enter a private space and reveal their deepest mistakes and darkest thoughts to a priest. The power of the ritual was not simply forgiveness. It was the act of speaking the truth in front of someone who would not recoil. Confession brings relief because secrecy creates tension. When you become the person who can hear her hidden thoughts without judgment, you occupy a unique position in her emotional world. Everyone else interacts with the edited version of her personality. You experience the unfiltered version. That creates a form of trust deeper than ordinary affection. It creates complicity. You become the one person who knows where the emotional skeletons are buried, because she trusted you enough to show them. Leaving that kind of relationship becomes extremely difficult. Not because of obligation, but because the alternative would mean returning to a life of masks and restraint. When all 7 needs are present together, something unusual begins to happen. The controlled threat reminds her that strength exists beneath your calm exterior. Psychological penetration allows you to see past her defenses. Volitional resistance ensures that you remain an independent presence rather than an extension of her identity. Erotic objectification focuses your desire directly onto her without hesitation. Emotional containment stabilizes her inner storms instead of amplifying them. Contextual isolation removes the distractions of the outside world, so deeper instincts can emerge. And shadow witnessing allows her to exist fully without hiding the parts of herself she fears most. When these forces combine, attraction no longer feels accidental. It becomes an experience. Many people misunderstand this process and call it manipulation. But manipulation requires deception. What we are describing is not deception. It is awareness. Modern life has changed the roles men and women play in society. Women can build their own careers, earn their own money, and protect their independence. They do not require men for survival the way previous generations often did. But independence does not eliminate the psychological dynamics of attraction. Humans still crave polarity. They crave the experience of encountering someone who activates emotional states they cannot generate alone. A woman cannot be the object of her own hunger. She cannot contain her own chaos from the outside. She cannot experience resistance against her own will. These experiences require another person. When you understand the deeper architecture of desire, you are not taking something from her. You are providing a rare psychological environment where she can release the constant pressure of performing. For a short moment, or sometimes much longer, she no longer needs to manage everything. She does not need to lead. She does not need to plan. She does not need to maintain perfect composure. She can simply respond. That experience feels like relief, and relief often transforms into attachment. However, there is a price attached to this level of connection, a cost many men do not consider when they first pursue it. When you awaken these deeper needs, you awaken intensity. The comfortable roommate version of a relationship requires very little energy. It is predictable. It functions on routine. Two people share space, responsibilities, and schedules. But the lover version of a relationship carries electricity. A woman who feels deeply attracted becomes emotionally engaged at a much higher level. She becomes passionate, curious, sometimes demanding. She expects presence, attention, and strength because she has felt what it is like when those qualities exist. Intensity replaces indifference. Many men ask for that intensity without realizing what it requires from them in return. They want admiration, desire, and emotional devotion, but they still want the convenience of a low-effort relationship. Those two things rarely coexist. The lover is not low maintenance. The lover is high voltage. So the real question is not whether you can trigger attraction. The question is whether you can sustain the responsibility that comes with it. Most people ask for rain when their lives feel dry, but when the storm arrives, they complain about the mud and the noise. Deep attraction is a storm. It brings passion, loyalty, obsession, and emotional depth, but it also demands strength, consistency, and self-control from the person who awakens it. If you choose to walk this path, you are no longer aiming to simply be liked. You are choosing to become an experience. And experiences, unlike comfort, are never passive. They require presence. They require intention. They require the willingness to carry intensity without running from it. Because once someone has seen the version of you capable of holding the storm, the quiet, ordinary version of life will never feel quite the same again.